Ah, the great outdoors. Camping is a favorite pastime for many people, from outdoor enthusiasts to people just looking to get away for the weekend. Whether you're going for an extended stay or an overnight adventure, being prepared can make the difference between having an amazing experience and getting caught out in the elements. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the key items that you're going to want to have to make sure that upcoming camping trip is one to remember. The first thing that probably comes to most people's minds when they think about camping is a tent. Now that might seem pretty obvious, but there's a number of factors to consider here, and the first of those things is going to be how many people are going to be staying with you. Now tents can range from a one-person tent on the small end all the way up to 8 or more on the large end. Tents are often advertised as being rated for a certain number of people, but the amount of people that the tent is advertised for and the amount of people that can comfortably stay in the tent may not always be the same. For a general rule of thumb, I usually like to multiply the rated number by 2/3. For example, a tent rated at 3 people can comfortably fit 2, and a tent rated for 6 people can usually comfortably fit 4.
You'll also want to consider what the weather conditions will be like where you're going. A lot of entry-level tents are rated for 3 seasons, and most of them do a pretty good job under most conditions. Your tent may be advertised as being waterproof, but you won't really know whether or not the interior stays dry until you're out there in the rainstorm. If you're trying out a new tent for the first time, it may be a good idea to set it up before you go camping and leave it out during a soaking rain. Afterwards, walk around and see if there are any wet spots. If there are, you can buy waterproofing sprays and seam sealers, which can be applied for additional protection.
Also, while I've chosen to focus on tent camping for the purposes of this video, I should also mention that there are a number of other potential options to choose from, like hammocks, campers, vans, and even the back of your car if it's big enough.
Once you have a shelter that you'll be staying in, the next thing you'll want to decide is what you'll be sleeping on. Some popular options here include cots, sleeping pads, and air mattresses. Cots can provide a comfortable and supportive sleep surface for a single person with relatively easy setup. They elevate you off the ground above any potential moisture. Some of the drawbacks are that they tend to be bulky and heavier and don't provide much insulation in colder temperatures. If you're camping in fair weather and value comfort and ease of setup, they may be a good option for you. Sleeping pads are slightly more involved to set up than cots, but can be a comfortable option for 1 to 2 campers. They're sometimes less firm to sleep on than a cot, but often provide decent insulation for colder weather. Most sleeping pads are rated with an R value from 1 to 7 for how well they resist the transfer of heat and insulate you from a cold ground. The higher the rating, the better they will insulate you from colder conditions. Air mattresses are generally larger and can be a good option for more than one person to sleep on or for a spacious single-person platform. They usually inflate with an electronic or battery-powered air pump and are fairly simple to set up. Some drawbacks are that they tend to lose heat in cooler weather, and they sometimes seep out air and need to be reinflated in the middle of the night. Along with a sleeping surface, you'll definitely want something to cover up with. For a lot of people, that will be a sleeping bag. Sleeping bags come in a couple shapes and varieties. Mummy sleeping bags are more form-fitting and tend to be lighter and sometimes better for colder weather. Rectangular sleeping bags are often looser and more comfortable to sleep in. For a casual weekend camping trip with decent weather, the rectangular bags will work just fine. Quilts are often lightweight and a bit more open than sleeping bags and can be a good option to provide warmth and comfort. Sleeping bags and quilts usually come with a temperature rating. One thing to keep in mind is that these ratings are usually for survival and not for comfort. A sleeping bag that's rated at 25 degrees Fahrenheit, for example, may not necessarily be comfortable to sleep in at 25 degrees. Now for the fun part of camping, food. Nothing says camping like s'mores and hot dogs cooked over a fire, but the truth is that camping food can be whatever you make of it. From campfire popcorn to sandwiches and more elaborate meals, the key is to plan out your meals in advance and come prepared with any ingredients you'll need as well as a way to store them. I've even seen people make pizzas.
Now for storage, most of the time you're going to be bringing a standard cooler that you fill with ice to keep your food cold. These things come in all shapes and sizes. The big question you're really going to want to ask yourself is how long are you going for and how much food do you want to bring, as well as how much car space do you have to commit to it. For most cases, for most weekend outings, this is going to get you by just fine. Now, if you're going camping more frequently, or if you're going to be out for longer periods of time, you may want to consider something like a car refrigerator. It looks a lot like a cooler, but it's essentially a small-sized fridge that will run indefinitely. But in order to keep it powered, you're going to need something like this, which I will get into later in the video. Now, there is a third option here, which are non-perishables. There are a lot of dehydrated camping meals that you can buy. These things, you basically just add boiling water to them to rehydrate them, and they cook within a matter of usually 10 to 15 minutes. Surprisingly, these things can be very tasty. A lot of people are kind of turned off by the idea of them, and I'll admit that sometimes the texture can be just a little bit off, but the flavor is there. They can be surprisingly delicious. There are all sorts of different meals that you can buy here. I've got a chicken tikka masala and a chicken teriyaki and beef stew, just to name a couple. But there are breakfast ones. There are all sorts of options. For all of these options here, it's always going to be important to keep a clean campsite. Never leave food out overnight. Either keep it in your car or in a bear box if one is provided. You may not always be heading into bear territory, but even in relatively tame areas, you can still attract a raccoon or a skunk into your campsite, which has happened to me, and trust me, you do not want that.
Just as important as the food you bring is having a way to cook it. That means having a source of heat and any necessary utensils. If you choose to cook your food over a campfire, you'll need to pick up some firewood, some kind of fire starter, which can either be store-bought or kindling like twigs and used newspaper, and a flame source like a lighter or a torch. If having an open fire isn't an option where you'll be camping, or if you're just looking at an easier alternative than building a campfire, there are tons of camping stoves available that utilize small fuel canisters. These can be smaller pocket-sized stoves up to multi-burner stoves and even ovens. Make sure to bring any pots and pans that you'll want to cook on, along with any utensils that you'll need. Generally, these would be tongs, spatulas, and hot dog sticks. A favorite of mine are mountain pie makers, which are basically two irons that lock together to cook grilled cheese-style sandwiches that can be made using pizza ingredients or any number of concoctions that you can think of. This next one is pretty self-explanatory, but having plenty of water on hand is crucial and you don't want to be without it. Some campgrounds have drinking water stations, but the quality of the water can be questionable, and if you're going to use one of these, you can actually buy filters that attach right to the stations and can help make the water a little bit more pure. Otherwise, if you're going to be bringing your own water, just make sure to have plenty on hand. That can be with store-bought gallons, water bottles, or high-capacity containers. As a general rule of thumb, I usually try to keep 2 gallons on hand per day. If you're going somewhere more remote, you can buy water filters that allow you to drink from streams and other sources that would normally be undrinkable. Now, nobody ever wants to get hurt, but having a first aid kit is a crucial item to bring on any camping trip. It's an item that you're not even going to think about until you need it, but even just having some extra band-aids on hand to stop the bleeding from a small cut can be crucial. So, very good item to have here. I keep one of these in my car at all times. There are a lot of good options that you can buy of these little pre-made kits. They fit into like a seat pocket or small storage areas. And they have basically everything that you would need for any kind of like minor injuries. Even these little alcohol antiseptic pads, they have pain relief and allergy relief, so you don't even have to hurt yourself. Like, even if you're just not feeling too great one day, these can be really good to have on hand. Having the right clothing on hand can make or break any camping trip. The biggest question to ask yourself with this one is, what type of weather can you expect where you're going to be going? If you're camping during the summer, it may be warm throughout the daytime, but temperatures can still dip down overnight. I usually like to bring at least one pair of long pants and a warm, long-sleeved shirt like a hoodie. You can also get these compressible puffy jackets that squeeze into a stuff sack. Rain may be a concern where you're going, and it's usually a good idea to have a rain jacket or a poncho with you. Make sure to bring appropriate footwear for any activities that you'll be participating in. If you're going for a hike, you may want a pair of hiking shoes or at least some sturdy sneakers. There are sometimes showers available at some of the campgrounds, and I like to bring a cheap pair of rubber sandals to wear into them. I also like to have a more comfortable pair of sandals on hand for when I'm relaxing around the campsite. When it comes to socks, underwear, and t-shirts, I generally like to have at least one pair extra on hand for the number of days that I'll be camping. If you'll have an opportunity to go swimming where you'll be camping, you may want to consider bringing a bathing suit as well. Depending on where you live and what time of year you'll be going camping, it can get dark out pretty early and you'll definitely want to be able to see what you're doing. There are lots of options to choose from, including handheld flashlights, hanging lanterns, and headlamps. I like to always have some kind of stationary lighting that stays back at the campsite while I bring something else along with me for those nighttime bathroom runs. A portable fan can be useful, especially when it's hot out, and some models actually double as lighting. Whatever kind of lighting you decide to bring along with you, make sure to have plenty of battery power. Having long sleeve clothes can help with this, but the bugs can be nasty, especially in the summer, and another crucial item to have on hand is bug spray. This is one that can really be the difference between being comfortable and getting eaten alive. Some campers will also bring enclosed shelters like awnings and pavilions, and you can even buy bug nets that go over your head. Having a campfire going may also help to keep the bugs away. Along with bug spray is sunscreen. I've stayed at some campsites that were shaded in the woods and others that were completely in exposed sunlight. You'll be outside for long periods of time, and the time to think about sunscreen is beforehand, not when you're starting to get burned. Having one of those tarps or extra shelters that I just mentioned can also help to create an area to escape the sunlight. Going camping is basically like making a home in the woods for a while. You'll want to keep a clean campsite and bring any supplies that you'll need to help with that. This means paper towels, garbage bags, possibly dish soap and a sponge depending on what you'll be cooking, and anything else you might need. Make sure to bring any dental items like a toothbrush, toothpaste, floss, and mouthwash. You can get travel-sized versions of all of these things if you don't have room for the full size. If your campground has showers, you may want to bring soap, shampoo, conditioner, and a towel. If you won't have access to a shower, it can also be a good idea to bring along some wet wipes to freshen up with. You may not need it where you're going, but I like to have a roll of toilet paper on hand just in case. Hand sanitizer can be a good idea as well.
Now, earlier I mentioned keeping a cooler powered with something like this. Now, this one's entirely optional, but it can be a good idea to keep some power banks on hand to keep your devices charged. This one is made by Jackery. It can be powered either using a wall outlet or with solar panels, which is really cool, because in good weather conditions you can keep a decent amount of power on hand almost indefinitely. Now, if you don't need something that intense, there are some good handheld options to choose from as well. There are these little portable power banks that usually run in about the $40 to $50 range. Although they can be a little bit more. They're pretty decent, and you can usually get anywhere from maybe 3 to 5 charges on a cell phone from one of these things, so definitely a good thing to have on hand.
Camping is whatever you make of it, and in addition to all of the items I've mentioned so far, the most important part is having a good time. You may want to bring a good book, playing cards, board games, or anything else to entertain yourself with. I haven't mentioned them yet, but folding chairs are great to have too. Nothing beats sitting around a campfire and telling stories, or just staring into the flames or gazing up at the stars. Camping is also about making memories, and you'll want to have something to take lots of pictures with. Above all else, bring a sense of adventure and an openness to new experiences. I'll see you out there. Peace.